October area. It's just whoop. And I think so. Hopefully it'll be fully installed before the ghost tours, and it would be like a good launching point, being like another additional continued draw. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, we appreciate all your work on this. And one of the reasons we were also pulling it back is we just, I think we're all a little tapped out, and to commit to that much kind of work and stuff just wasn't, we needed something that was manageable. And I like the idea of scaling up over time. So thank you for your work on that. And yep, I just wanted to make sure that the redirection wasn't all on you.
I fully plan on being like, and with Cathy.
Yeah.
That's right there. It's not just me.
Right.
Thanks, Cathy. And thank you, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening. All right, back to Slate Hill. Good news, the GPNR project is complete. We did go slightly over budget because, as with any project, when Ashley, Dawn, Monica, and I were going through things, you find other things and you want things done differently. So that cost a little bit more money. I think 450 or 425. I'm not exactly sure. We had money in the budget, our budget, without going into community fund to cover it. I don't have the map yet. They're printing out a good map, so I want to show it off at a meeting. And I also felt like I wanted Monica to be here too. So we will kind of more formally unveil it at another moment. But there is also the live website, which is actually super cool. Like, you can click on it, you can see the stone, the information. It's pretty cool. And it'll be great to be able to show that off at the ghost tour. I get to do all of the Slate Hill stuff since Monica is on vacation. The headstone project is progressing. I believe he's going to communicate again at the end of this month to finalize the stones. I think Monica said there was going to be about 100 stones repaired. So the majority, and certainly all of our bigger problems, will be resolved, which is awesome. And they're going to be doing the work, I think, in early September. So we will keep you posted on that, but Monica is well in control of all of that. Ghost tour. Monica is, of course, in charge and doing all of that. I brought new pieces of paper. We need sponsors. Thank you, Helen, for getting McCaffrey's. And that actually helped me when I filled out the Wegmans form, since they specifically asked if any other grocers and businesses had donated and how much. So let's hope that they match. But all of the signups on there are my name and Monica's name, and one or two for Helen there. So I would appreciate if people could try to get other people to sign up. We did set it up this year for the advance ticketing for $20. You can reserve a spot now before tickets go officially on sale. And I put that out to my neighbors, and they've very generously, including Dave's wife. I've raised, I think, like $300 or $400 that way too. So that's awesome. And then we also had somebody through Facebook that lives over on Stackhouse give us $250 like before we even started. So the individual stuff is actually in some ways easier to do those asks, because I know we all hate going, or many of us hate going into a store and asking, but if you can. I got Yardley Pharmacy. I have to go back to, and Brian will give me a check. But I'm just sort of, when I go into businesses, asking. I think that's it on that. I should pull up Monica's thing. The tree updates. Holy mollies. Wow. Helen, you will be so happy. They took down at least 10 trees. After they did the ones over by Ulysses Grant in that area, that was 3 or 4. And then there was a couple in the back of Friends. Monica and I persisted and really pushed to have Rick's do an assessment. And this past week, they took down 7 trees on the segregated side. At last time I was there, they hadn't taken all the wood out, but they had cleaned up. They did unfortunately damage poor Charles Jenkins' stone a little further, but that was a fragile stone and already broken. And Well, if you're going to break a stone, right before you have the grant to fix stones is the best time to break a stone. So, wasn't thrilled about that, but the cemetery looks completely different. It is very empty. That's why I think the floral garden will be great, and hopefully we can expand on that. But it feels like it will be a much safer thing, and I appreciate them doing that. Additional 7 trees cost $12,000 to the township, plus whatever they paid for the other ones. And having paid $3,000 to take 1 tree down, 12,000 is actually a very good price. So that is great news. The path project. So I have an Eagle Scout. He will do, remember we had talked, I had gotten some estimates about getting a path all the way across the cemetery, and I think it was like $4,000 without edging, and I was going to get some more estimates. Mr. Eagle Scout will do the path through the segregated side. He has a professional landscaper that will do the kind of the digging, the heavy work. And then they will put down stone, et cetera, and make a path. So we will have half of it done for free. I am waiting to hear from Mr. Kratzner. He was out of the office a day or two, and Derek, they had wanted more information. I just sent it to them, and they may want it to go to the Board of Supervisors for approval, which, I don't think it's a bad thing for an Eagle Scout to have to learn how politics work. But I am fingers crossed. The goal would be get it done before the ghost tour, but time is going quickly. But I am working on that, and hopefully we can make that happen. Whew. Y'all get a big Cathy dump today. QR codes. I finally got off my tushy and got all of the pages up for the QR codes for 2025. So the pages are all up on the website. There was about 7 more, I think I added from last time. And I sent the information to Tom, who needs to get the QR codes made. And I asked him to please try and get that done before Ghost Tour. So he is away this month and next month. So fingers crossed that he can get that done. But that would be a nice addition to have 7 more QR codes for next year. All right. Anybody else have anything on Slate Hill?
Cathy, I was just going to point out that you'll need to keep an eye on the grass there, because that grass under those trees is probably a grass that grows very well in shade, because those trees shaded it, and now it's going to be exposed to the sun. So we may have to think about some of those spots might need to be reseeded or something come fall.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put anything else on Public Works at this moment, but we can keep an eye on it. I mean, I also heard from Monica that Derek was expecting a child imminently, and that was a week or 2 ago, so that may have happened. So that may also be the delays, but yes, we'll have to kind of keep an eye on it. I mean, there's obviously a lot of issues in there still, but we're making great progress. And hey, the trees are down, so that's safe.
Right.
New business. I'm going to let you take this one, Joe.
Okay. When we talked about the historic resource survey, I don't remember if we acknowledged Jeff's work in putting together a map for us. So we'll have a map of all the historic properties and their locations to see. And I think you're good, Jeff. I think you're also kind of color coding that by property type or by age.
Yeah, category 1 through 3 as far as the
Right.
Preservation statuses and the color coding.
Yeah. So
I also added all the ones that were outside of that as well. So you can see all the other ones that might come into that category as the years progress.
Yeah.
So the yellow is like the more recent ones post 1900. Okay. So what he's saying is Jeff B did because I finally realized I couldn't do everything. I asked Jeff to do a Google map of all of the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, and then he added some of the post 1900 ones. So we have it all on the map so we can look about overlays, etc.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that a digital map available for others?
Yeah, I basically made it as a Google file for Google Map. So I will figure out how to share that within our Google Drive so anybody can click on it and be able to view it in Google Maps, or they also work with Google Earth too.
Okay, so as Cathy alluded to, the first survey, officially the first survey goes from the first houses in the township up to 1900. There are some, there were some houses that were in the 2007 survey that, especially along River Road, that began to touch the early 20th century. So we have those. But the next step is to think about the houses that are from, say, 1900 through, I mean, we could think about it through 1975, or, at least kind of post-World War II. But the same process that we used is not necessarily going to work because the numbers just begin to explode. You probably have about, well, I think if I recall correctly, when I looked at the survey, there's about 150 properties that take us up to 1900, but there's a couple hundred properties that take us up to 1939 at least. And then it just goes up, especially post World War II, goes up beyond that. So we have to, as we think about applying for the CLG grant, for another CLG grant to continue our work, we have to think about how we're going to conduct that work. And Jeff Marshall had sent over a couple of bulletins from the National Park Service around how to think about historic residential suburbs. It's about 150 pages reading in total. So we're going to have to go through that and start to work, and we'll involve Jeff in this, obviously, and think about what process are we going to use, not just to identify, but really more importantly, how to assess. We can identify those houses. Once we move into the 20th century, we have, lots of tax records and permits and things like that. It's much easier to identify houses. But what the question is how are you going to assess them, and what are you going to call historically significant? So we're going to do that. I'm going to work on kind of putting that together, getting most of the fleshed out into a grant. Monica offered to actually help with the grant writing. We do not have a timeline yet. Megan told us that she will be in touch with us in terms of when that window opens and when those applications are due. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to ask if anybody else on the commission is interested in this, and because 150 pages worth of reading, might as well get started now. So if there's anybody else who wants to work on this, let me know, and I would involve them with it, and we can kind of go from there.
No, I'd be happy to work on it. I've already done quite a bit of research on the first development in Edge Hill Gardens, so I've got that under already kind of up on my wheel horse. But I'm concerned about the fact that so many of the ones from 1900 have been massively added to or subtracted from over the years. And Jim and I had actually talked about doing a cutoff at the time that the first building permits are listed in the township, which I think is 39.
I think it's 39, yeah.
37 or 39.
Yeah.
And that would give us a convenient spot to make the next cut.
Yes.
1900 to 1937. And then you would look at the extent of the permits, what kinds of things are being added does it change the facade from the road? Does it really impact the house? Can it be reversed? All those questions that you would ask for historic authenticity. So it makes sense to me to do the next grade up to like 1939.
Yeah.
You want to get those set up.
Right. And I can send that out to people if they want to see the numbers. I had calculated them once before, but Helen's right. There's a chunk that goes to 39. And then again, just World War II and post World War II, there's a big explosion of houses. And then 95, 295, there's another explosion of houses that happens after that. So, but I think it would be, and, honestly, we have to also consider, like, it's going to be a $25,000 grant. We can't say to, Jeff Marshall, here's a couple thousand houses to assess, right? In fact, even going to 1939 is going to be more houses to assess than I think he's assessed for the first part. In fact, I'm almost definite it is. So yeah, so what I want to do, Helen, is focus. I mean, we can look at some of I want to focus on the process. How are we going to go about doing that? Identify the houses, assess them. We should start to think about what are we going to call has historic significance. we get into a lot of these developments, like, Westover, there's a number of really beautiful houses and, from the 1920s, but there's like three of them, and are they all historically significant? There was one. So these are the kind of things we have to work through. I will forward this, Helen, to you and anybody else. If you're interested, let me know. I'll forward over the documents. We'll read through them, and then we'll start working through what's the process we want to use.
Well, the other concern, somebody had asked me about, excuse me, is the township doing anything about houses that have significance due to the people who started there? Like we have, at this point, people in, say, the Pensbury special case that are newscasters, that are important people in the national news.
Right.
Do we want to be specifying their house as a particular example? Troy Vincent, what was he, tight end from the Miami Dolphins that lived in the Allen house, or the house next to the Allen house. Victor Saraceni, who was technically the first victim of the 9/11 attack, is things that are historically significant. We may want to look at the house that they lived in when these things happened.
Yeah, agree.
Helen, do you have a list of people like that, or could you create it? So, I mean, I would actually we really pushed quickly through the last one for a variety of reasons, mostly around the demolition ordinance. And I think it would behoove us to be more thoughtful and be planning ahead. If you had a list of homes or people that were significant and we tracked down who live there, I mean, certainly significant people is one of the criteria.
Right.
We could figure out, like, I think Jeff had an initial list of like 330 properties or something to start with this time, if I'm remembering correctly. We could kind of figure out how we're gonna get a manageable list to him for 25 grand, that can be managed within whatever the budget is. I don't want to rule out anything based on famous people, but we have to kind of figure out, I guess, also what is famous. Like,
exactly. And how quickly it dissipates. Yeah, exactly. There's no way to tell. And there's probably people who grew up in Lower Makefield who have not yet made their mark in the world, and then how do we add on later? I think that, again, that's part of a process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know all of them. I know quite a few, but not all of them.
well, if you could start a list now so we could be ahead
Sure,
of the
I will
game.
start a list.
You're starting a list. All right.
Absolutely.
So if you could, when you get a list, and we get to that point, send it to Joe, and we can kind of figure out when we have a discussion with Jeff about what this scope of work is going to look like and how we're going to break things down.
So just looking at, to Helen's point, the numbers from 1900 to 1939, there's 261 houses,
Oh, okay.
and that, so that's more than the 150 that we discovered for the others. So just to give you a sense, from 1940 to 1975, there's 3,691 houses. So, but then, I mean, it's mostly all, in that period, you're mostly all in neighborhoods and developments and things like that. So.
Well, I think with the 260, you're also, as you said, talking about some that are in developments, so that we can kind of say, okay, assess Westover and kind of tell us, do it a little bit more general, like assess the development and what, if anything, do you think is significant at this point?
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And Jeff B., are you willing to write the RFP again, since you did it last time? And I'm hoping that you can pretty much copy and paste.
As long as we already have our vendor selected as Jeff Parcel, or
Yeah, I mean, we have to go through a competitive process because that's what we have to do, but
that was the problem last time, wasn't the RFP?
yeah.
It was getting the consultant to do it for the price, and
Right.
that took months.
I mean, Jeff has expressed interest in the job. I am sure Jeff will bid at the job. If other people bid, we have to deal with that. But that's kind of the direction we're going. So Joe's going to work with Monica on getting the grant done. If you could do the RFP, and then I can also come in at later, and I have a good relationship with Jeff now as far as kind of making sure things happen. Cool. Anything else? Did you want to talk about your other thing in public comment, or? Okay. Any public comment, anything else people want to hit upon before we have our record short meeting?
One
Yeah,
thing. Can we please get to Jim with some more, I hate to say it, but complaints about the houses at Edgewood Village that have broken windows and holes in their roofs, that something be done about those, because we want to see them preserved. And unfortunately, the HARB has been meeting so randomly that it's not on their agendas to look at the condition of many of the properties, and both the Ishmael House, as we call it, or Biles Corner, both need attention.
Joe, any thoughts on that as vice chair, former chair, as far as our role and what that looks like? Or
Yeah, I mean, we always have a role in all the historic properties,
Okay.
right? I mean, as to Helen's point, HARB's role is more around reviewing any changes or designs and things, but this is clearly, an issue around demolition by neglect. I don't know, Helen, I think you might know, is there a demolition by neglect clause in the traditional neighborhood development overlay?
Yes, there is, and it's a fine that is can be administered on a daily basis to do it. However, our township has never seen fit, the supervisors never seem to want to push the developers that own these houses because it would reflect badly, on other aspects of the political spectrum. So unfortunately, it continues. Usually if we make a complaint, the owner will put a piece of plywood on it or Band-Aid it some more. But at this point, there's a hole in the attic of the Biles house, and there's broken glass all through the upper floors of that. And the other house was as well. The pieces have been falling off the front of it. And some of the plywood has been removed by vandals. So has to be repaired, has to be kept up.
Helen, in the demolition part of that ordinance, is there a procedure at all? Because I mean, I know this was a concern for us in our demolition ordinance, that I'm very concerned about procedures. You've heard me speak on that ad nauseum. But is there a complaint process laid out in the ordinance?
Yes, there is, but the Board of Supervisors has to act on it.
So does the complaint go to the Board of Supervisors, or does it go to Jim Majewski or David Kratzner, or?
All of the above. we used to give it to the zoning official, the zoning inspector, actually, who's the person who should generate these kind of things. And basically, if the neighborhood comes in and complains, say, about a house that is abandoned and is collecting weeds up to the waist, and no one is taking care of the household, generally a neighbor would initiate it, and it would go to the zoning official, the inspector, and then it would go to the Board of Supervisors, and they would act on it accordingly. That's sort of the process. He would get cited. The person who owned the house would
zoning,
get cited.
then that's the other person whose name I'm forgetting, or does that go via Jim Majewski?
It's I'm not sure. I think it goes through Jim. Jim is always the person I call usually.
If and this is a question for the commission. If the commission wants a letter written, I am happy to do so on the caveat, Helen, that I'm going to ask you to send me in writing the specific complaints and the citation from the ordinance, because right now I'm a little overloaded, so I don't have time to do all the deep diving.
Sure. I will do
I
that,
am
Kathy.
happy to draft a letter if the commission would like me to do so. So
I
that
would-
would require a motion or somebody saying that.
I would make a motion that Cathy draft a letter on behalf of the Historical Commission regarding the demolition by neglect at the point in Edgewood Village.
Joe made a motion. Is there a second? Dave seconds. All in favor? I see everybody's hand. Unanimous. Okay, Helen. Just send me.
I'll get you that information, Kathy.
Yep, and I will do the letter, and I will send it to Jim and Kratzner, and then we can figure out about the Board of Supervisors. Because I do send them not quite a monthly report, because we don't always have enough to report on, but every so often, every few months, I send them a report on our activities and concerns. And I know Matt is in on this meeting. Okay, cool. Anything else? Public comment? Ashley, Steve? We have public. Our next meeting will be September 10th at 7:30 p.m. and Joe will be chairing because Cathy will be in California for a conference. And hopefully some fun. So motion to adjourn. Jeff, second by Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're out of here. Y'all have a nice night.
Thanks, Cathy. Bye.